Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar titled Adopting eHealth Solutions Implementation Strategies, which will be presented by our two expert co-chairs, Maureen Charlebois and Deanne Salo-Swallow. Please note this webinar will be recorded for today's participants. Today's participants will receive an email with instructions on how to access the recorded link, which will be saved and posted to the Rnao website and the Rnao eHealth Communities of Practice. At this time, all participants are in listening mode and automatically muted for the presentation portion of the session. There will be opportunities to ask questions at the end of the presentation, and there are two ways to do so. The first option is to type your question into the chat box on your screen, and the second option is to unmute your line by pressing *7 and asking the question verbally. I turn it over to Deanne, who will begin. Deanne, just a friendly reminder to please press *7 to unmute your line. Yeah. The line by pressing *7. Yep, I hear you.
Okay, very good. Well, again, Deanne Salo-Swallow, and welcome everyone to about the new release guideline. I'm currently the CIO of Mackenzie Health in Richmond Hill, and I'm a nurse as well. I have been in health IT for over 25 years, and I was quite pleased to participate in the development of the guidelines with our co-chair Maureen Charlebois and the Rnao. So much appreciation there. So let's start with slide 3, disclosure of commercial support. We are not receiving any grant or research support or speaking bureau honorarium or consulting fee or any other for this engagement. What we're going to present today is we're going to review the Rnao new eHealth best practice guidelines that were recently released in February. We'll describe how we develop the guideline, the process that the Rnao is using for that. The key guidelines recommendation will spend a fair amount of time on the key guidelines recommendation and highlight some implementation support and strategies. To way for their partnership in developing this guideline, as well Coach and Tata Tao International for endorsing the guideline. I think we all know about the Rnao, our professional association. They've been in existence since 1925 as our professional association for registered nurse, nurse practitioner, and nursing student in Ontario. We are the strong, credible voice leading the nursing profession, influence and promote healthy public policy and clinical excellence. The program of the Rnao has been the development of best practice guideline program that started in 1999. So today, the Rnao has 42 clinical practice guidelines and 12 healthy work environment guidelines, which most of you must be familiar with. The Rnao best practice guideline program mandate is to develop and actively support of evidence-based clinical and healthy work environment, best practice guideline, and to evaluate their impact on patient and organizational and health system outcomes. 4 guidelines were published in 2002. The program has grown to 42 best practice guidelines, so that's an enormous amount of work that has been done by the Rnao team. And to nurses and interprofessional team in all practice settings, including acute care, home care, long-term care, and public health. They're meant for all nurses and healthcare professionals, for those who deliver care at the bedside or in the community, to those who work in administration, research, policy, or as educator in nursing school. So you will realize that this latest practice guideline that was just developed for health IT is really in alignment with all of that. Practice guideline recommendations are based on best available evidence and are referenced throughout the document and referenced in decision-making about the appropriate health care. That is by nurses and other healthcare professionals. Maureen, to start the presentation about our guideline that have been recently developed.
Great. Thanks. Can you hear me? Yeah?
Yes, thanks.
Okay. If you would mind, just to advance the slide. So why is this eHealth guideline so significant? It's because here we are, 2017, and although we've done so much, we still have a very long way to go. We all know, that eHealth solutions have been proven to improve patient care, improve access, quality, and productivity, and that we are currently under a real transformation, a paradigm shift in how we deliver healthcare services, and that we really want to move from a silo-based approach to a much more integrated, person-centered care delivery. And this is really enabled through information technology, eHealth. And yet, so many organizations some still don't even have information systems, and those that do aren't using them to their full potential. And when we move forward in trying to implement these health information systems over the years, we keep hearing and seeing the evidence that 70% of eHealth implementations fail due to lack of leadership, engagement, insufficient planning and funding, and inadequate uptake. In fact, in my previous role, actually, when I was at Canada Health Infoway as a chief nursing executive, we did a survey just last year, and still the key barriers why these technology implementations are failing is because of lack of clinical leadership. In fact, in one of the surveys that we did, still clinicians are not being engaged to inform the eHealth design of our systems or leading the system implementation. So we really need to change that. And given that the focus now is on the implementation and that 50% of Ontario hospitals will need to replace their eHealth solutions in the near future, we really needed to provide today's leadership to make this difference moving forward. As many of you know, Richard Alvarez, who was the CEO of Canada Health Infoway, and this was actually a quote from him from several years ago, to say that, when we started on the journey of implementing electronic health record across Canada, we said it was going to be a $10 billion to $20 billion investment over 10 years. Well, guess what? We're already there, and yet we're still playing catch-up because we did not engage our clinicians and our healthcare leaders from the outset. And so that, we really need to ensure that it's being led by the clinicians and leaders that are using the system. On to the next slide then. We came together just over a year and a half ago. We said, this guideline is to provide you the resource so that you can develop the capacity in your own organization as well as those that are leading provincial systems or national systems. So the focus was three-part. One, to have healthcare leaders, nurses, and other health professionals to be involved and optimize the involvement in every step of the implementation of electronic health systems, so right from the procurement, design, implementation, into the ongoing optimization of the system. For healthcare executives and clinicians and non-clinical leaders, educators, and administrators at the organizational system levels to effectively identify and address the eHealth education needs. And this is where we need to support and provide the right education, and to also provide the mentorship that our clinicians and our colleagues need to make them feel confident and competent in implementing and using health systems. And that was a big barrier that we've seen across Canada, that, we're implementing these systems and we're not giving the effective training and education. And the third key foci area is really at the national level, saying, at the provincial and national level, that our government agencies, administrators, and policymakers really need to put in the right enabling policies and practice to support our health system transformation, so that we can achieve integrated information systems to enable information exchange and person-centered care. Guideline that we leverage to help inform and set sort of the context of this guideline was the clinical adoption framework, and this was developed. It actually started several years ago at Canada Health InfoWay with a benefits evaluation framework, as you see there, and then wrapped around that was the people side, where we need to really manage, effective change management and change leadership, and ensure that we have the enabling standards, legislation, funding, incentives, and that we are, sort of just in time, because as we know, things change so quickly, especially in a digital age. So coupled with that, the Rnao also did a review of the gray and peer-reviewed literature that provided the basis for the recommendations included in this new guide. So in developing the guideline, we also developed the maturity model. And this really was just to provide you with a visual to say, this is not an end state we're going towards. This is actually about a journey, and a journey of how we're transforming practice at the individual level as well as at the organizational level, and that we need to have the effective leadership at all levels. So, as a nurse, that he or she is working within their full scope of practice and providing that nursing leadership at the front line, and similarly throughout all levels of management. And so the model, again, is just to help provide you with a visual, is that it has various elements, and what you see there, it's also, and I'll go through later in the presentation, at a high level, the recommendations are also mapped to where our recommendation is. But it's to say, and I just noticed that it should be beginner is level 0, so it should be level 0, level 1, and level 2, and we'll fix that on the slide deck before we send it out. But it's to say, just like as a new nurse, we go through different stages. Similarly, we have a starting point, a beginning, intermediate, and advanced. But recognizing that, even you think, oh, geez, we made it, we're here, well, then that just starts the whole optimization. And that even more so, as I said, in a digital age, we have to even be that much more agile to change and in some practice based on our data analytics and the evidence at the time. So it's going to be a very exciting time, but it also means ongoing support and education for our team. So the guideline development framework that Rnao has been leveraging, and hence why it just seemed natural to have this come from the Rnao in partnership with Infoway is that they have such a solid methodology for the development, and now having been through it myself, I can say, you know, the team is an excellent team, and they don't miss a step, and this is just to provide you a visual to say with the guideline development, all of the intellectual capacity that goes into the development of such a guideline, and that it then links to their ongoing evaluation and monitoring, and that's through, for example, NQuire, which is a nursing data set where we have our outcome indicators, and that's assisting with ongoing quality improvement. And then the dissemination and implementation and sustainability of the guidelines. This, you know, this, for example, is obviously the very first webinar, because we just released the guideline, but the commitment to provide that ongoing support and education, and as well, and I think it's, they also then will sit down and review the guideline in a year or so to ensure it's still reflective of best practice and that they're agile in changing or adapting it based on the great literature as well. So hopefully did a good job there for Rnao on that. And then the next slide is then this guideline development, so leveraging their methodology. This guideline was developed by international and interprofessional panel of experts using a rigorous and systematic process. And as I said, they certainly kept us on our toes for every step of the process, but it was really a fun way of developing this really valuable resource. The panel members included, pretty much we tried to have all representation across the continuum of care, including patients, and also those experts from education, research, and policy. So we really had a solid team, and that the experts that were there also, you know, they've had the lived experience. And some have been in organizations that have already attained level 6 or higher on the NRAM levels of the EMR implementation. So I'm going to turn it over to Diane, and she's going just to give walk you through the next few slides.
Okay. Thank you, Maureen. So you have in front of you the list of the expert panel member who you could contact at any time to help you when you are using those guidelines. And as Maureen said, we had a full, comprehensive numbers of people from various groups, and I cannot stress the importance of having a patient representation on our team, nurses and physicians from various groups. So I think it really helped the discussion and the comprehensiveness of the guidelines. So we're very appreciative of the expert panel member for that. Guideline development, as any guideline are being developed, the Rnao has a very rigorous process to do that. And I learned a lot from that process, and I'm quite appreciative of having been part of that development of the best practice guidelines. So it always starts with finding out some of the questions, that we wanted to target for a literature review, and we wanted to have evidence-based and answer to those questions. So we came up with 4 questions. The first one being, for example, at the individual and level factors, the individual and team level factors that contribute to high quality electronic health information system and successful adoption. The question was at the organizational level factor, what those that contribute to high quality electronic health information system. What education and training do individual and organization need to lead and support for high quality of electronic health information system implementation and adoption? And system level factor, what are those that contribute to high quality technology health service delivery? So all the recommendations based on these 4 questions were researched and developed accordingly to that. Phase of the guideline development, as we identify our 4 questions, we also needed to have some inclusion criteria. So we look at all relevant articles, research published in English from January for a span of 10 years. So we did a literature search around those inclusion criteria. The guideline recommendations were formulated using the evidence obtained from the literature, and if you look at the guidelines, they are all well documented where the evidence came from, and I think that's just outstanding work from the Rnao on how they're doing that. They've applied also a modified DEFI technique that was employed to obtain panel consensus, and the idea of the panel was not concealed, but their individual response to the recommendation were concealed from other members of the group. So it's a very well system that led us to reach panel consensus. So there are a lot more information. I'm not giving a lot of credit right now. There are a lot more information on how to develop guidelines, and you have the references here if you need more information on how these guidelines are developed. So, process, we developed 50 individual and organizational recommendations. That's on micro and meso level factors that contribute to implementation adoption, utilization of high-quality eHealth solutions that realize the intended outcome of our return on investment. We did 4 educational recommendations that facilitate the acquisition of informatics competencies by health executive and health professionals. We also developed 7 system and policy recommendations to address the structure process, policy recommendation, and more. So Maureen will go over what are these key recommendations from that.
Great, thanks, Diane. Can you hear me, Tanya?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, I'm just going to go over at a high level, keeping in mind that all of the information that you need to know for each of these recommendations are for you in the guideline. And, you know, we really wanted to take the work away from you, and that this is your go-to document. So I don't know about all of you, but I know with myself, you know, you go and look for some information to help out, and you're just inundated with all this stuff, and it's like, where do you even start? So I would strongly encourage you, use this as your go-to. There's lots of rich evidence in the guideline, as well as, you know, what's a little bit different about this guideline than other guidelines, because it's so early in its infancy stage, is that, you know, maybe it's not all evidence-based, but it's best practice. So I'll just walk you through some of the high levels to give you a flavor of what's in there. So for the individual organizational recommendations, this is saying, you know, we need visible executive sponsorship throughout all phases of implementation. I know it sounds pretty basic, but I'm telling you, it doesn't happen. That we need the creation of specialized chief nursing information officers, which is a critical element to advance clinical action in healthcare. Now, I wanted to comment here that this, you know, keep in mind the size of your organization as well. And so for some organizations, they can have, you know, a fully dedicated CIO. In other organizations, this could potentially be integrated with their existing chief nursing executive role, or it could be integrated overall as a, chief clinical information officer. So again, these are guidelines, but then you have to say, okay, what works for my organization to make this move forward, and size matters as well. So use of a formal change and project management methodologies to fully engage stakeholders throughout all phases. And there you'll see some of the frameworks that we're recommending. Incorporate usability processes throughout to enhance individual organizational efficiencies. As I said earlier, we didn't engage our clinicians early days, and no that they don't use it because they weren't designed to be integrated into their current workflow. So develop an ongoing post-implementation operational plan that includes data governance structures and processes that support sustainability. And this is really critical because all of your attention will be on just getting the system started and getting, clinicians and other members of the healthcare team to use it. Then, where the transformation is really going to take off is how then you're using the information, your data analytics and information management on an ongoing basis to optimize care delivery and professional practice. So all of the additional information is in the guideline. So we'll go on to the next slide. As the second focus was on the education recommendations, and here the three key are education and training is essential, need to be supported by appropriate eHealth, e-education infrastructure. Nurses and other health professionals need to take responsibility for being up to date with role-specific eHealth competencies. And this is where, it's about developing the capacity in every single role, informatics competencies. And, what's different than, let's say, before, informatics was seen as a subspecialty. Well, this is just now a core competency that you as a nurse have to have, that you as a manager, as a director, as a nurse executive, the list goes on. So this is the new normal going forward, and that healthcare organizations to facilitate persons' access to health information, empowering them to assume greater responsibility for self-management. So here, nurses and other healthcare providers are going to play a key role in educating our patients, clients, residents how to effectively access and use their health information, and also, thinking of how we develop e-health educational tools as well. And the system policy recommendations, our recommendations include to have national and jurisdictional e-health agencies to continue to collaborate and establish effective governance structures to provide a coordinated leadership front, and that we work in tandem with our regulatory and professional associations, and that we need to ensure that the necessary telecommunications infrastructure is in place to support the implementation of e-health solutions. And this is going from IT telemedicine infrastructure, but also to ensure you have bandwidth within your own organization. And many organizations don't have the effective bandwidth that you need to practice in a digital age. So you need to get that ready, first step. And that our national and jurisdictional eHealth agency to develop a strategy to mitigate the initial costs for health organizations to adopt eHealth solutions. And so we know, just the technology itself is a big ticket item, as well as the ongoing training, education, and support. So we really have to have our eHealth agencies have a thoughtful strategy going forward. And then phase 2 is the dissemination, implementation, and sustainability. That's a big word there. And as I said, the webinar is one example. Plus, we're going to have apps for smart phones, and currently for other guidelines that are available, and we'll be developing one for this guideline. We're going to have a quick reference guide for you, again, trying to make your life easy so you can go from the high level to more the detail if you need. And then also the patient education resource. And to give an example, I think the next slide go into, as an example, how Rnao has developed, let's say, for example, an eHealth video promoting patient and family-centered care in a digital era. I'm not going to show you the video because it won't really work that well on the webinar, but when you get the slides, you'll be able to access this. And additional resources will be as a toolkit to really assess you in maximizing the use and implementation of the best practice guidelines. So I think now I'm going to be turning it over to Dion, who will take you through the remaining of the slides.
We spoke about phase one, the guideline development, and Maureen went over the dissemination of an implementation and sustainability of those guidelines for phase two. Now, phase three, which is key to any guidelines, is to formulate and it's formulation and evaluation and monitoring structure process of outcome indicator as a result of the guidelines. So what we did here, just giving you some example, and of course it's a lot more comprehensive in the document, but for every recommendation, we look at the structure, process, outcome, and the tools. So let's take the first one, executive leadership. We need an executive leadership establish a formalized governance structure with roles and responsibility and structure to guide and support all the phases of the implementation of the eHealth solution. And this is key, visible, and how are we going to measure that? What a process. So you need some governance structure as established with diverse representation and clearly delineating roles and responsibility. The idea is that you will have this governance structure in a successful implementation of the eHealth solution. And what we did is we provided many tools to guide you, various tools about the governance structure, model. So you'll see in the document that there is a lot of very helpful tools that you will be able to use. So I cannot stress that first one. We're going through a huge implementation of an health information system, and the key to our success is our governance, executive leadership presence that we have. It's no longer an IT project. It is a clinical transformation project, and that executive leadership is so important there. An example of a recommendation is organization implemented policies and procedure to support a comprehensive organizational readiness assessment in the planning phase. And the process is that we have a readiness assessment tool that includes very comprehensive for individual, organization, and technical dimension. And then we address all the gaps throughout the implementation. So we will have demonstrated through the outcome those individual, organizational, and technical readiness. And we have in some of the appendices a standardized readiness tool that you can use, modify, but it's there as a guide for you to share. So we have done that for the majority of the recommendation, and it was an enormous amount of work to have access to all this information and package it. So I think you will find that quite beneficial to have access to these tools and that framework. And of course, we've got references for everything in this presentation that we use. And I also want to acknowledge now the outstanding work, the outstanding team of experts that we have at the Rnao that did these guidelines, that they led us to the development of the guideline and it kept us on track. It was not easy to keep us on track, but very good process, focused discussion, and time frame, and special thanks to Rita Wilson, our team lead here. Oops, I just lost my access here. Tanya Costa and Valerie Gritza, Ray and Ya Ho Wuju that were instrumental to help us in developing the guidelines. Actually conclude the presentation, and we have a good amount of time for a question that the group might have.
So on the chat, which I'll just read out, and it's particularly for Maureen. The survey that you discussed regarding the InfoWays work survey on lack of clinical leadership that may be linked with the system failures, is there a title for that, or are you able to provide that perhaps to me and I can send it out to all participants, Maureen?
Yeah, so I'm not currently at, can you?
Yeah.
I was talking there. So I'm not currently at InfoWays. I don't have access to the survey findings. They are on their website, and there was a slide deck that I know we did that we made publicly available. So that can be accessed through the website, whatever the results are. I don't have them not there anymore.
Have the title of the survey?
Well, yeah, it was just the InfoWay Change Management survey results. There was a third party that we had engaged to it. I don't know if is somebody from InfoWay on the line, maybe they can, at the top of my mind, but why don't we do that as a follow-up? That's fine.
We have one of our panel member also came from Canada Health InfoWay, Maureen, and I think she might be able to help Tanya to access that
Great.
question. So we'll follow up on that.
Yeah.
Great. And then just one other question from someone who is familiar with the CAS and the Kaizen InfoWay entry to practice informatics competencies. Is there a competency framework for informatics on an advanced practice or leadership level?
Can you repeat that question?
Sure. So she's familiar with the Kaizen InfoWay entry to practice informatics competencies. And she's just wondering if there's a competency framework for informatics at an advanced practice or leadership level.
Yeah, so it's Maureen. I'll respond to that one. No, there's not one that that we developed. However, the entry to practice as in competencies for the new nurse can and are being used at the organizational level. So as an example, when I was at InfoWay, there were some hospitals and other organizations out in British Columbia that I helped actually take the Kaizen informatics competencies and implement them, so to say, and they integrated into their policies at the organizational level. So you can actually leverage them. So they're not just for really the new grad, they can be used for those in practice as well. So hopefully that makes sense.
So from Coach, they've also developed some health IT competencies, but they're quite focused on the IT specific. But I think if we combine both, we could have a comprehensive competency level at every level. So we could look at both to review that.
That's helpful. Are there any other questions from anybody either online or on the phone?
I'm just wondering if we could get a copy of the please, Tanya.
I will be sending that out.
Thanks.
If there are questions, just a reminder to unmute your line by pressing *7.
Hi, Lucia.
Hi.
Just wondering, at the national level or even higher or organizational level, is there any work being done to make, I don't know the right words, the interfaces that these different systems can talk to each other, or that there is only a couple systems that actually work for everybody, or?
That's a good question, actually. I can start, Maureen. I know at Canada Health and Fourway, one of their first tasks was really to look at standards for interoperability of all the systems. So every vendor have to comply to certain standards to make the system to easily talk to each other. So that's one of the steps that was undertaken. But as many of the systems now are quite comprehensive and integrated and interoperable, so it makes it reduces the complexity of having to connect these systems together. So a lot of work actually over the years have been done that interoperability front that is much easier now to manage and get data to cross back and forth between the systems.
I would just add and then current work that's being led by InfoWay with the clinical systems interoperability. So that's going.
There's another question online. The question is, does the guideline recommend a sustainability framework?
Yes. The sustainability framework is the end. So typically, when we implemented some system, we go live, and then that's it. There is no budget to continue to transform the system, optimize it, update it, and we are really strongly recommending some strategy at every organization and different level that we put in place a sustainable model to continue to enhance the value of the system and for our clinician to get some of the features that are necessary for them to work. So optimization has to be post-live and kept ongoing.
Yep. Throughout the recommendations, the sustainability and optimizations are throughout. And the maturity model slide that I went over, that really was to help provide a visual on the importance that, this isn't about just implementing a project, but it's about transformation and the ongoing sustainability optimization that needs to be built in. So that you will see throughout the recommendations, and there's a lot of great reference material for you, as well as embedded within the model itself.
So it's Wendy Lang speaking, and that was just a great segue into my discussion as well, because I have worked at a large hospital as well that implemented a system, but then there was no recommendation, no understanding that the ongoing support needed to be there for especially the frontline workers and the people who used it. So they got training at the initial part, and then that it really wasn't seen as very important to continue to train them. And you all know with that initial training, they only get about 20% of what you hear. Yeah. And it's that ongoing training, and I'm really looking to this guideline to be able to support me in some of my other work about saying it doesn't just stop when you've implemented. It continues and goes on, and you want to leverage and use that and transform, as you say.
You have budget for that. You have to, at the onset, put budget. Yes.
Exactly. So, yeah, you said it exactly. And So that should be all in the guideline, but when you're going through it in that, there's some, because that's exactly what it's to help you too, right? To say, hey, you know, go to whoever you need to say, go to and say, here's what we need. If you find something that you wish was in there, you know, we will take that ongoing feedback as well, and that would be through the Rnao, because as we said, you know, these are going to be agile type of guidelines that we will revise based on best practices and other bodies of knowledge that would help you be successful in your efforts.
Any other questions? Unmute your line. Closing, you can download the guideline free of charge, and the website is actually just on your screen. And if you have any further questions, feel free to email Rita Wilson, who's the eHealth Program Manager at Rnao, or myself, Tanya Costa, here at Rnao, and we can definitely answer your questions or send you the or any other resources that you might require. So at the time, I just want to thank for your great presentation and for answering participants' questions, and for being great co-chairs on the BPG. And thanks to all the participants for joining today.
Thank you. Tanya, take care.
Great, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Yeah, great job. Thanks. Bye.